So hopefully we're up and going and recording, and I'm going to get started. Uh, so I've got a short technical update, and then I'm going to turn it over to uh, Callie for the bulk of the meeting. The challenge I wanted to mention was because she said this earlier. It would be nice if we do these after we have an event afterwards, and I think in the future maybe we'll work on that. But I realized that we don't really have a grid-oriented event planned right now. We have our regular Saturday and Sunday events where we alternate. Callie and I alternate, and those are going to continue. But we don't have a kind of a upcoming event or thing planned. Um, and in some ways, the challenge part is encouraging all of you to kind of do some of that stuff. We had a lot of help over the Christmas season, holiday season from Tanya and Wolf and a few others to do the events that were done around that. And I think that was a great success in spite of some difficult circumstances through part of it. But I want to thank the people that participated in that, and let's kind of think about things we can do going forward because I think there is actually some things I'd like to do to enable that, and I'm going to get to those. I think actually right now. So I did a rollout last week on Wednesday. Should have it should be on all of the current regions right now, um, and it added in particular the support for offline messaging. So basically, if somebody sends you inventory, sends you a message, um, and you're not online, it gets saved now in a database and delivered when you next log in. There is, as you probably are aware, in SL an option where you can check a box and say, "Hey, deliver my messages via email." That is not currently enabled. I didn't want to potentially spam a bunch of email out if there was a problem with this first step rollout. So far, it's gone fairly smooth. So that's something I'm going to be adding in the near future. So if you have the setting checked in your viewer where you get offline messages, you'll get uh, you'll get them in email as well once that's enabled. So working on that. Just didn't want to kind of spam, uh, send out a bunch of spam email incorrectly if the rest of the system wasn't delivering as expected. But so far so good. So that was the major change that was in that release. There was some other bug fixes and some new scripting functions. And okay, Kai asked a quick question. I'll grab this one right now. So offline works from people on other grids. No, the this is an OpenSIM issue that we have a bug tracking tracked for. The the OpenSIM database doesn't store hypergrid addresses for uh, for offlines. So you basically can't get offlines from hypergrid people. Um, that's something that we need to kind of make some changes and bug fixes for in order to fully support. And it's probably going to have to get fed back to core, so it gets picked up by other OpenSIM installs. Uh, so right now, it it offlines definitely work between local residents. If you're online and somebody IMs you from a hypergrid address, that will work. But the offline part does not because of the limitation to storage. And like I said, we are going to work on that and get that working because it was definitely noted um, when we did some of the work on discussion in NGC. If local residents aren't on the same grid, if that shouldn't matter if basically the instant messaging code looks for an avatar, if they're a local avatar, it looks for you online, and if it can find you, it will try and deliver to you. Um, so the first thing I would expect is if it If you're hypergriding actively and you're still partially connected through the services on the local grid, you may just get the message, which is fine. It, but at worst, in that scenario, it will go to offlines from a local resident. So, uh, but yeah, we'll. I'll do some. We're going to do some more work on in this area, and actually, those are good questions because what I really should do is work up a set of use cases to build tests, so we can verify that all the kind of cases that you'd expect to work or to actually do, and actually do this testing and do it right. So, but that was the main change that I pushed out this past weekend. Um, in terms of services, that means that we have offline messages. The search services largely work now. Um, yes, and misuse cases, right? We want it don't want it to be abused. Um, so search also works for the large cases that I can think of. The only case that currently isn't implemented is events and searching for events. I'll go into that in just a second. But basically, in order to enable the search interface, there are in the viewer a number of options where you can say show in search the on your parcel or on the region, and with individual objects that are resed on the region, you can show them in search, and then they'll get indexed and made searchable from the interface. There is a little bit of old data in the current database, so you'll sometimes get entries that are stale. We're in the process of purging those out so that everything is just current data. But the search interface also works. Um, People search works. The only thing that is missing, as I said, is events. And the reason that is the case is that events require, even in SL, for instance, a website to basically generate the event listing and put it up. Um, and I'm in the process of doing that now. So actually, yeah. And Drew asked about mentioned profiles. Profiles actually and profile searching should be working, as should classifieds. But the profile thing, there is a problem with the current version of Firestorm 6.6 and later. Any of those 6.6 series uh, broke profiles. There's a long story behind that. It's actually rolling back to an older interface for the profile access that wasn't fully implemented in upstream core. There is a fixed version 6.6.9, which is a beta that I'm actually currently using right now that does work, but that's not released yet, so you probably won't be able to get it. So the recommendation would be to go back to a 6.5 version and use that because that has working profiles, um, and they are indexed correctly and searchable. So the you should be able to see. Okay, so Judy, let's look at that together. If you can, I'll take a look at it with you, and we'll figure it out. Because profiles and profile searching, in particular, in the search interface, should be working just fine. You should be able to find people online as well. Um, so the website, our current website interface, the dashboard, what we call the dashboard, which is where you register for your grid account and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't have a lot of functionality, but there are some things there like the ability to see who's online, to see a grid map, and a few things like that. The main thing that it serves for is a mechanism for people to create accounts and so on. Um, that was originally put up f- coming up on almost 4 or 5 years ago now. I can't remember the exact number of years, but it's been a while ago. It was put up as a JOpenSim plugin that used um, 5 years. Yeah. So it's using JOpenSim, which is a PHP plugin um, to a portal system that was good as far as it went and had some issues too. But for the most part, it gave us the ability to get a web presence up online and fairly quickly because I wanted to focus on the rest of the grid for the most part. Um, that's that interface has mostly been abandoned from what I can tell. There was some talk about an updated version, but it's never shown up. And it's dependent on a version of PHP that is quickly becoming obsolete. So I'm going to put up a replacement data website. And what I think we're going to do when we do this is we're going to run the two in parallel for a period of time. Uh, when the new interface will pick up and hand migrate the accounts, I'll migrate the accounts over, so nobody has to do data entry again to get in on the new interface. I'm actually going to reuse some of the code I had developed for SkyGrid, so that'll give us the ability to do things like transaction lists and things like that out of the gate. Um, but it'll also provide a mechanism to schedule events, like I said, and support currency buy and sell. There'll be a region maintenance screen, so you can basically get a list of all of your regions, restart them from the interface, that kind of thing, and an active grid map and a few other features uh, that I think would really kind of flesh out what we can do from the web interface. There's potential for other things as well, but currency is a big one. I mentioned that we've been getting more interested in Skybucks. I think people are starting to use them, which makes me happy. I'm glad to see that, and um, and I like the fact that it's being used. I want to provide a mechanism so that you can see your recurrent regions, the bill that is due on the region, and potentially apply Skybucks balance to pay for some of that stuff. Because right now it's a kind of a manual process where I have to credit you. I take the Skybucks and credit you against your current PayPal bill. So there's some work to do there. Yeah, Wolf asked about currency selling. For the Skybucks, I have no plans to do cash outs. You will be able to spend Skybucks on grid services, specifically on your region, your tier. But there's also some other things that we've traditionally not been super aggressive about charging for, like ores and stuff like that. Uh, that that are going to get added. The big one, though, like I said, is the what Tanya's asking about transaction history. That's a big one. I've already got that working because essentially I had it for SkyGrid, so I'm gonna bring that over. And as I said, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put these two interfaces up in parallel. So for a period of time, you'll be able to get to the current interface if you want, and the new one. And the best way to do that, so you get in the right place where you want to be, is to go through the utopiasky.com top level website, because there will be pointers there to both dashboards and you'll be able to pick which one you want to enter, the old interface or the new one. Um, that'll just make it a little bit clearer. You can also save the link, of course, and use it that way. But I think that's going to be the cleanest place for somebody to come in. The main thing I've got to do that's um, missing right now, that for me to turn this up, is account creation. So, and because I'm going to run these in parallel, I don't even have to do that. But I'm going to try to get account creation working, um, and support the ability to pick a starter avatar from the list like we currently have. Um, think that's the main. Yeah, that's the main things I wanted to talk about the website. You'll start to see some of those changes in the next 2 weeks. It's an active area of development for me right now. Um, so uh, hopefully we'll start to at least get some of the initial functions that I had before in SkyGrid out there that you can use and get accounts working so people can log in correctly and things like that. Um, I'm actually going to take a slightly different approach where uh, you have an account that represents you as a person that owns regions and things like that. And you also have the ability to see alts. So when you schedule events, you can pick which person you're scheduling as, and they'll own the event listing and so on. Anyway, you'll see all that stuff as it comes together, and I'm definitely going to be interested in feedback on it. So, um, region maintenance, grid map. So yeah, a little bit more on the tech side. There has been some interesting work going on the NGC front. Uh, as many of you know, I gave a talk back in December at the OS community conference, Open Sim community conference, on the trusted grid and some of the work we're doing. We generated a fair bit of interest in that. In the process, it became clear to the community that we're actually forking the code and going our own way with it to some degree. That generated some both positive and negative, as you might expect, feedback. Um, but I think for the most part, the community understood that we have different goals than Core does, and therefore it's the right thing to do. We ended up uh, having someone came into the group that is interested in a new viewer. They're actually developing from the ground up a viewer using Unity, uh, the Unity engine for the rendering, and and frankly blowing me away that she's done a remarkable job in a very short period of time rendering the scenes and um, interfacing with the system and getting data back and showing it, uh, and hopes to have something in an alpha state pretty quick. So I'm really kind of psyched to see that. There's also been a few other people that have come on board that are interested in participating in the server itself. So more hands is a good thing, and I like to see that kind of change. The trusted grid stuff is going to start to get some attention as well, even for things that aren't code related but policy related in terms of how we define sharing, um, and keep things secure and trusted. The last thing I want to mention, then I'm going to turn to Callie. We'll come back and take questions at the end, and I'll try and address things in the chat as well. But um, the, we have many of you probably remember back in Inworld's days, Ballpeen did a lot of the work on the physics engine at the time, um, and I'm still hoping, and I think rightly so, that he's going to be able to work on the physics engine for NGC. Um, but when he did that work, he developed a set of reference scripts for physical objects, for physical vehicles in particular, for like cars and flying devices and things like that. He We tracked down the old scripts from InWorlds, and he's in the process of updating them for the current script engine and physics engine, and he's going to make those available open source to the community. I have the first one for testing, and I think that why am I hearing like somebody from Star Trek? Somebody just beamed in. Um, this is in World over on Welcome. Anyway, sorry about that. Ballpeen's working, as I said, on to make for vehicles, and the first focus is flying vehicles. I will make these scripts available in the free script library, which Wolfie, by the way, is taking management responsibility for, and we'll make those available. This is for yeah. So Judy's asking, is this physical and non-physical? these are true physical vehicles. It's the basic script could be used for like a balloon device or for a plane. A lot of the enhancements that someone might want to add for planes and stuff are missing, but there's hooks for you to put them in. Um, that's the way he did the original scripts in Inworlds back then, when he did them. So it's a good basic starter script for vehicles, and I really appreciate the fact that he's taking the time to do this, because I think it'll be a big win for the community as a whole. Uh, Having a physical vehicle work is kind of a black art. It shouldn't be that way, and we're going to continue to make improvements along the lines, but the physics work, and in particular, is going to take some time. And I'm kind of hoping, like I said, that in that case, Ballpeen runs with that as well, because he just has the background that I lack. I personally lack around physics um, and how the system should perform. Just has the experience. But I'll make an announcement when the scripts are available. Should be soon. I just got them this morning. I need to unpack the box and verify that everything's there and it works as expected, and then I'll go ahead and put them up, and we'll announce them for people to take a look at. So uh, that's the that's it for me. I think that's the main things I wanted to talk about. Um, if Why don't we take a few quick questions now? If anybody has anything specifically about the technical update, and then uh, I'll switch gears and we'll let uh, Callie go. She's got a lot of exciting stuff to talk about as well. So if you would like to ask a question, go ahead and raise your hand, and you can speak or type your question in the chat on the side. All right, I'm not seeing anything. All right. Hopefully I didn't put you to sleep, and I was just clear about what I said, or at least, or you're going to wait and see how things develop. Um, all right, I'm going to turn this over to Callie then, and we'll go from there. And if we have any questions or you think of anything, we can come back at the end of the meeting.
Hi, everybody. I'm back. Okay, so the big news of the day that I've been dying to talk to you folks about is something I'm calling user. Um, I know it's kind of silly, but I like it. As most of you know, we've been doing like individual, you know, um, meditation or teaching or things like that, usually in groups. And one of the things I've always wanted Utopia Skye to be about was art and you know holistic things, and then education, and also community, because it's the community that drives all of those things. Without community, none of that works. And we've had some interest in offering some classes. We've had some people who are educators in things of a virtual nature, as well as those that have offerings that are real world in nature. And so I think it's time now. I think we're ready. I think we've gotten some folks that have also joined recently that also have an interest. And so um, I got a little excited, and User was born. User literally stands for Utopia Skye Education Resource, or resources. What it aspires to be is an education, I don't know, facility or group where you can take classes on things like Blender or um, mesh bodies or textures, or things like that, but also things about education on mental wellness or mental challenges, things like that. A lot of our users have different things going on in their lives that they may find they're better able to speak on those topics and, inform other people. And I think all in all, it helps us all relate better together. There's also fun things like I'd love to see prim charades and, the prim pounders group and all those things kind of rolled up into that kind of a gathering, if you will. So I've created the user group in World. Anybody and everybody is welcome to join. It's open join. If you can see my profile and you want to join, just click the link there and it'll get you in there. Or you can ask me and I'll add you, directly. Um, and one of the things that we're doing, we've got a couple of Blender classes that might be coming up from a basic and I think an intermediate perspective. Still working out the kinks with all of that. And I know we've got a couple of seminars. And the way this works is we can have traditional classes that go once a week for, X amount of time. We can also have seminars where it's just, an hour or two. And we can also have workshops where it's kind of like a hybrid of the both. And so we're building our regions out accordingly. This will be open to Hypergrid. So people from Hypergrid destinations can visit and take classes. And as such, we're also offering a Hypergrid sandbox because the two sandboxes that we have are just for residents. And the goal is that eventually we'd like those folks that are taking classes or whatever to join the grid. But we also don't want to not allow people to take these classes if they're interested. So that is kind of where we're starting. We've got some channels in Discord that if you don't have the role, you won't see them, so they won't bother you. If you would like the role, again, just ask me and I will give it to you, and then those channels will open up for you. We're going to have an onboarding, if you will, to kind of explain how the things are going to work in there and what's expected. And I think it'll be a good time for everybody. I think, if nothing else, it can't hurt to give it a try and see what you think. And I think it's also a really good way to meet fellow residents and maybe make friends of people you haven't been to, like, a GT event or, Fetish Fire event, and, kind of meet some of the new folks coming in too. I've also had some returning IW folks. Luna Bliss has joined the grid, and Violetta Bijou recently joined as well. And so I know that they are talking about, Luna Bliss in particular, support groups, like grief support groups and all sorts of life support groups. And I think those are fantastic. I think that anytime we get a chance to be together is a time when we can grow, learn, and have fun. And the bonus is we do it for free, right? I mean, we're not paying a counselor, you know, $4,000 an hour or whatever, and we're just kind of getting support from our friends. I think those are all very good things. The regions are in the process of being built, so we currently don't have the regions yet, which brings me to my next point. We have two Creators Guild regions. One is open to Hypergrid, and the other is for USG residents only. The original design of those was that if people came over and couldn't get a region or didn't want a region or whatever, but wanted to be on the grid, we wanted to offer them a place to, kind of tout their wares. Most of the folks that have space on either of those regions either A, have their own regions or are part of an existing mall arrangement, with a couple of exceptions. So what we've decided, because they become more of a management issue than they do a benefit to our residents anymore, is we're going to go ahead and take those away and get rid of those. And those regions will be the user regions. So in their place, you'll see the user, I guess, campus. I don't know what better word to use, but and then the sandbox for it will be right next door to it. So that's going to happen in the next, I'd say, 2 weeks or so. If you've got any questions on that, please feel free to ask them or to get in touch with me in Discord or in World when you think of them. I can go through and help you with some if you need help on those particular things. But I think this is leading to all good things. This is growth, and this is what we want to see. And I think now that the technology is kind of um, adding enhancements and things, we can take what's already a really good and working place and kind of grow it from there in the direction that we kind of want to go. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the matter or if you have any questions. So before I go to my other bit, which is kind of some grid needs that I think we need to talk about, I'm going to go ahead and open the floor up for questions. Make sure you raise your hand because we'll take them in order. But please feel free to ask any questions about user, about traders guilds, or anything like that. Hi, Ellen. You're welcome to speak your question or type it, Ellen, whichever is easier for you.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's that's easier than typing. Well, when with the disappearance of those creator guild regions, where are the hypergridders are welcomed or can land uh, when they are just visiting our grid?
Well, any region, like your regions are open to hypergrid and have a beacon. So anybody can visit directly to your region. They don't have to come from the Creators Guild region to go to yours, like to your shops, for example.
Yes, I know that, but that is only when they know my place and when they know my beacon. But there are always, I think, people who just want to visit USG and don't know where to go to in the first place. And uh, until now, there was a little spot on the Creators Guild where they can land and where you had a TP board so they can go they can see where they can go to, where they can visit to, what is open for hypergriders. But when the Creator Guild is disappearing, then that spot is disappearing too. So that was my question: is there coming something back for that? Because
Well,
I think it's very important to give them a certain feeling of welcome to our grid, uh, to know where they have to go to. And
that's a really,
when they're just hopping around. And, they can go to my region when they know the beacon, but that is not always the case.
no, that's a very valid question. And there was a big debate about that a couple of months ago. And no, currently, Welcome isn't open because we had the Creators Guild. And the reason Welcome isn't open on top of the Creators Guild is because we don't have anybody to guide people. And we have people that'll show up on the region, nobody's here, and they just leave. They don't even bother with the teleport board because nobody's here. I've trust me, I've done this. I've sat on Welcome for 2 years. The first 2 years we were open, I sat on there pretty much every day, short of like the weekends, for a couple of hours each day. And A, I never got any traffic, and B, the traffic I did get didn't talk too much and either talked and left without going anywhere. You know what I mean? It really didn't seem to work well. With the Creators Guild closings, I'm not against opening Welcome up to the hypergrid.
Right.
But the thing that stood last time is the thing that still stands today. And that is we need people to be available to greet if people drop in.
I don't
And that,
know if that is true, Kali, because the hypergriders are not newbies. They know where to go to. They know how to teleport. They know how to search for spots. When they see a board, a TP board, where what we have, then they can go from where they land to other spots on the grid. When there are newbies, I can understand there has to be people who can explain them what to do. But with hypergriders, they are experienced. So why should you have people to explain things to them? They know. Or am I wrong? That's my opinion. Sorry, but um, it I don't see why we need to guide hypergriders to tell them where to go to, because I think they know.
Well, the Creators Guild is currently the default landing point for
Yes,
hypergridders, and
but
I
that is
do
going
agree.
to disappear.
Yeah, and I do agree. We're going to need to supply something so
Yes.
that if somebody hypergrids to the grid, they have a place to go. So I think what we'll need to do is take this and come back with, yeah, it's going to be this. And but welcome probably makes sense. I do understand Callie's reservations, but I also agree with your some of your points, Ellen, that for someone who's just hypergridding around and visiting a grid, they're a little bit more savvy. So as long as we can take care of all the needs, um, I think we'll just need to come up with a solution for the hypergridders so they have a default
Okay.
place to land when they come to the grid.
Yes, something like that.
Yeah.
Would be great. Would be very hospitality, you know? It's giving a welcome idea. I know the hypergridders are not always welcome because there are griefers too, but not all the hypergridders are griefers, you know?
Okay, if there's any further question, if not, I'll take the next one. Okay, I see you're typing, Wolf. So I will hang back before I start moving on. Mhm. Yeah, and it's certainly something we can talk about. We don't want to not have a place for people to pop into, but we need to make sure that we set the right place for people. So, okay. All right. So the other thing that I wanted to kind of point out was the Tourism Bureau. We need mentors. A little bit different than like the IW mentor program, I think. Um, but we need people because there are new folks that are coming to the grid that need some help on where to go. I am open to any volunteers for that. I am pleased to announce that Wolf Hartnell has agreed to be the curator for the free script library. And what that means is he's going to control putting those scripts out and kind of getting that organized for everybody. I just haven't had time. I have a lot of wonderful submissions from people, but I haven't had time to put them out. And a free script library only works if it's available, right? So, so I was very pleased for that. I am sure he would probably welcome some help, but I'll leave that up to him to kind of sort out with you guys, with anybody that wants to. So if you've got scripts that you want to offer, there's instructions at the free script library, which is located on Clutterfly. And you just drop those in a post office box. And then they get picked up and then they get displayed out. I actually have, courtesy of Loki, thank you for that, Loki, several boxes of scripts from Christine Nin, who did this, yeah, in the past, Judy, like you'd said. So I know they're curated, they should be the easiest to kind of put out, but I'm not sure about her willingness to do that again. I don't know. We'd have to, I recall that we tried to reach out to her. I'm not sure what the result of that conversation was, um, or if it just didn't result in anything. But it's certainly something to Oh, well, the Savaria, whatever works in Savaria will not work here, unfortunately. You know, halcyon, non-halcyon, that kind of thing. Yeah, yeah. I might try again. I know she's around the NGC project. I think she's in the server at least, so maybe I can try and reach her directly that way. But
Yeah,
at the minute,
she occasionally comments on Tithon things, but it's
yeah,
only occasional. I don't know how active she is anymore. Yeah.
yeah. But at the minute, we have Wolf at the helm of this, and I think it's something that's well within Wolf's wheelhouse because Wolf is also a very good scripter and all that kind of stuff. So if you have questions about that, please get with me or get with Wolf, either way. And the free script library is on Clutterfly. So there's also um, Mouser is here in on the grid, and she is actively bringing in some of her animations, hair textures, and trim hairs and things like that, and she wants to give them away. So what we've been talking about is on the Clutterfly region is putting up like a stall, you know, with whatever she wants to box up and put out there. And I would offer the same thing to you guys as well. It needs to be curated because we don't want to just like willy-nilly just start throwing a bunch of stuff out there. But I would certainly love to have like if you ever been to the Clutterfly region, it's right near Welcome. You can just hop over and take a look. It's got the Linda Kelly stuff, but it's also got the things from Avatar Oasis. We've kind of merged the two. Flamey and Mike and I did a lot of work on this early on, and so everything's kind of organized. And then we got this like central courtyard where I figure we could put little, kiosks or carts of things if people want to contribute free items, and that would be a really good place to direct people to for freebies. The other thing we have, which we haven't done anything with yet, and I apologize for that. That's just another thing that we haven't been able to get to, and it's something I am looking for volunteers on, is the IW Memories on Welcome. If you remember when we unveiled the new Welcome, part of the unveiling meant that we were going to put IW Memories in the buildings instead of freebie items. There has been, as of late, some discussion on it since we haven't moved anywhere on it. Some folks have expressed, well, maybe it wouldn't be bad to put some freebies right there on Welcome where people can grab them without having to teleport around. Um, and then I'm of both minds on the matter. I remember when I dropped into IW, it was great to have those buildings and we could just go in there and get everything we needed to get set up. But we also have this huge Clutterfly that has what I would remember getting at IW times 100. So I'm of two minds of the matter. I feel like we should direct them to Clutterfly, or maybe at the entrance of whatever building we put some freebies in, put a landmark to Clutterfly, something like that, so that anybody that wants to do some freebie items has a chance to get them there. And yes, we do want some IW snapshots. Now, the thing that we don't have is the ability to say, okay, you get, Wolf, you can give me 3, and Lola, you can give me 3, and kind of put those in there. So, yeah, but we have a lot of builds, and if we fill them with pictures, I think that's great. I'm just not sure about I think it would make sense and be relevant to us. I don't think newcomers will care, being totally honest. If they weren't from IW, I'm not sure it's going to matter to them. So it's more a work for us. And the question is, do we want to take on that labor of love, or do we want to repurpose it to something that would work differently? So that's kind of a thought that we have to kind of have around that. I'll make a forum post on it and we can kind of, you know, have a chat about it. But that's something to think about. That was on my agenda as well. And then I have just a couple of other things. What I'm also wanting is volunteers, or what I call grid enthusiasts. We need cheerleaders, guys. People go to grids because of their friends. Oh, hey, there's this great grid with all these great whatever shops, clubs, events, whatever it is that floats people's boats. And we need people to kind of talk us up. I've been over in SL a lot lately because I've been talking to some folks there, and that's how I came across some of the other folks from IW, and I thought, oh my God, where have you been? You need to come to USG. You know what I mean? And I know some folks move in circles where there might be some people that are interested. No, we're not allowed to talk about DigiWorlds and stuff like that. But the thing that you need to be careful of, we're not in the business of poaching. That's just not our style. Even when some of the other grids closed down, like GCG and a couple others that went under, I even if I was in those groups, I never went into them and said, "Hey, come to USG. We'll take care of you." If people asked me about it, I would tell them, of course. But more to the point, I wanted to be somebody that could help guide them in whatever they were trying to do. In the case of GCG, how to try and get in touch with Roddy, things that they could do, But I never went in there like some other nefarious grid owners and was like, "Oh, come over," blah blah blah. So we just need people that, when asked about it, will talk positively about an experience they've had with us, or will point to the fact that even though we're a small grid, we are always, since inception, in the top 3 on that stupid, what's that, hypergrid survey every year. things like that. So, and yeah, I've done that too, Lola. A little profile pic goes a long way.
I think the key thing though is the well, the new people that you recently got to come over that were in world.
Hmm.
It was a personal conversation that led to it, right? It was
Right.
basically, saying hello, hey, hello, I haven't seen you in a while, um, and just introducing people to our community and saying, hey, we would love to have you over here.
Hmm.
Why don't you come and take a look? Um,
Yeah, kick the tires and see what you think.
think about friends that content creators especially, but also others that you know
Hmm.
that uh, that you'd really like to see here as part of our community, and just
Yeah.
have conversations with them. And especially and we're going to do our best to take care of all the residents, but I really believe that the content creators are important. That's actually what helps to is what helped initially grow inworlds, because
Hmm.
there was enough people, critical mass of people that were making new content that was unique to the grid. So we'll do our best to support those people as well. And I think I honestly think that our grid is probably better positioned to help solve that problem than pretty much any other OpenSim grid that's out there. So
That's,
we're going to do our best to make it a good place to be for people that make content.
yeah, for many reasons too. For content creators, for artists, for clubs, for things like that too. Um, yeah, demo regions is something too. I think these are all great ideas. I think the easiest way for people to be, grid enthusiasts is to put a pic in your profile in SL. Maybe put it in your other grids, but be careful about that. I don't. I want business to come because people want to be here. I don't want to poach or bring people here under the guise of anything other than it's just a great place to be. Does that make sense? I mean, I don't care if we grow slowly, you know, that it's more important that it's quality, and that we keep with the resident focus, like what you guys want is what we want to do. That's why we're in business. Well, yeah, yeah, that wouldn't be a wise thing to do. But yeah, my profile in SL, if you look me up, I am Calliope Andel, real original, I know, in SL, but it's spelled with the Y. Way back when I made my avatar, I couldn't get the proper spelling of Calliope. It still irks me to this day. But if you look at my profile is all USG. So, and the cool thing about it is you can, like, I made a group in SL as well, Utopia Skye Enterprises, and there's also a Golden Touch group there. And both of those groups are just notification groups. They're not really, hey, the show, like the GT one in particular, we have a show April 1st. I'll post a notice in there about that for any SLers that, come over here as a vacation grid kind of thing. Yeah. So that's what I mean by a grid enthusiast. You know, it doesn't really take a whole lot of work. I'm not actively asking you to go, hey, come on over. But if someone asks, or if you're in conversation, somebody that's running a group and, oh God, the prim count is shit. And, oh, the cost is through the roof. Well, hey, you know, check this out. The other thing that I need is, and this is a very on occasion thing. This isn't even a very consistent thing. This is testers for Discord. And really what it involves is if a new feature is deployed, and I do get notified of them, but I usually get notified of them either a week in advance or the day that they're deployed. So it's really hit or miss when I get to know. So, um, yeah. But that's just it. I mean, you've done this with me, Judy, before. When I do this, I post the state of the grid. It's like, okay, how's it looking for you? And sometimes like Materia does it too. Like, oh, okay, I can't see it. Or, oh, geez, let me do this. Oh, can you see it now? Yes, I see it. Stuff like that would be really, really helpful. And the server is large enough now that we kind of need that. We kind of want to make sure we stay on top of that because we actually have people who come into the server to learn how to use Discord. So, I mean, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't get asked to be admin as much in people's servers anymore, that's a very good thing because for a period of time that was a little crazy. But my focus is this server because this is our business, our friends, our community. This is our home. You know what I mean? So I always want to make sure that as best as possible, I know Discord can be confusing, and I know the more features they add, it gets even more complicated. But where possible, I can eliminate some of that confusion and or help you guys because you are my focus. So, so I know I've thrown a lot at you. So takeaways, if you want to join the user group, either as a student or an educator, just let me know. I'll send you an invite in World. If you want to help out on the free script library, talk to Wolf. He's going to be curating that. Get with me if you can't get with him. We kind of will talk to each other. We'll make it happen. IW Memories on Welcome. I'll start a forum thread on that, and we'll kind of talk that out. He probably would, Wolf, and we'll talk that out. And I'll also start a forum thread on, I think it was Welcome we were talking about, right? Ways to get hypergrid traffic for Welcome. And then my takeaway is demo regions. So Wolf, you mentioned it, so tag, you're it. Let's talk about that. Are there any questions about anything I have presented thus far?
I did realize that there's a topic I neglected to touch on, so before we're finished, I want to do that. Why is that the way of things? Like, so go to the grocery store, you always forget one thing, or the hardware store is even worse.
For me, it's office supply stores.
Can't do a trip.
I get lost in there.
Yeah, can't do a project on a house thing without having to go to the hardware store a couple times.
I'm such a nerd. If I go to computer stores and office stores, like seriously, put a wristband on me or a leash or something.
Well,
All right, I don't think anybody's got any questions on my topic, so
all right,
you have the floor. I'm gonna mute.
I would like to touch on the subject of griefers, since we have had a few incidents recently that I think we handled fairly quickly and without major incident. But there are some things that we can all do to kind of help make that a little bit more manageable and limit our exposure. So I wanted to touch on some of that. The main way that the primary person that's doing griefing attacks is the way that they operate is if they can find a region they can open res on, then they're golden res prims and get going. The other thing that they tend to do is they look for things that are anyone can copy kind of prims, and they take a
Wait.
copy.
Lola says she can't hear you, Mike. Can you?
Okay, is that better? I'm not speaking, of course, now, but hopefully that's better. I had my mic pushed away from my mouth a bit. I have my sexy voice.
Well, I guess that means she can hear you now.
Bow, bow. Okay, I'm gonna go on. So, like I said, the way that that operates. Hopefully, you can hear me. I'm gonna go ahead. The way that he or she, whoever this is, operates is that they will look for open res or they'll look for prims that are anyone can copy, and they use those as a way to launch a physical object attack. So they take a copy of the object, put a script in it that replicates the object and sets it physical, and then they start bouncing around, and they bounce to neighboring regions and all kinds of stuff. So that's the general approach to the attacks that we've had to fend off so far. And the best way, I think we're all used to just having a environment where things are friendly, and you want to be able to allow anything that you can. The But that works against this kind of an issue. So what I would recommend people do in general is for your regions, for resing, if you want to provide a way for people to res on your region in support of a group, um, the best thing to do is to limit resing to that group only, or provide a small parcel where they can unpack things like that. We do have the sandboxes. So for all of our USG residents, anyone can go to a sandbox. It's open res, and but for USG residents only. So you can basically go there and unpack things, whatever you do. With this new user facility that we're talking about, we will have a sandbox for hypergrid residents that will have a fairly aggressive auto return on it, um, for obvious reasons, but kind of along the lines of what I'm just talking about. But for your individual parcels, what I would suggest is, like I said, try and limit resing to groups where you can control the membership and you have some ability to direct it. Um, you want to allow, especially if you're on the mainland, you have to do this. You want to allow um, uh, object entry and script entry, because for vehicles to function and enter the region, or people's AOs and so on, that has to be active. But you can limit resing to groups, like I said, where the residents, the people that are in that group, and you can administer that a little bit. And that change alone will go a long way towards addressing a lot of the issues. So uh, the the mechanism that people are using when they come into grief, we haven't had a case where we've had a local griefer, somebody who is a resident that's doing this, thankfully. And I would be disappointed if we did. But the it's all been hypergrid. So the obvious targets are hypergrid accessible region. So if you have your region on the hypergrid, take a harder look at things and make sure that there's no kind of exploitable surfaces that they can take advantage of to do things. Um, in particular, when we cleaned up the last one, I found a couple of cases where anyone can copy objects and that kind of stuff that I'm pretty sure were used as a mechanism to launch the attack. And the other thing too is, if an object is said anyone can copy or anybody can move, they can mess with your build, even if they don't use it as a mechanism to replicate objects, right? So you might find things kind of cockeyed or moved around, or um, so just be aware that uh, if your region is open to the hypergrid, you want to be a little bit more diligent about how things are set up, and in particular, try and limit resing to a group where you have some control over. So that's the main thing I wanted to touch on there. Overall, I think we're in pretty good shape, and when we had an incident, it was handled pretty quickly. So yeah, thankfully we aren't dealing with that. They're just
Mhm.
physical spheres that bounce around a lot.
Yeah.
But
Typically, this attacker's name is Priscilla Kleenex, and at every chance, whenever an account is made, they can't make an account on USG, by the way, but whatever hypergrid address they come in immediately gets banned. Um, there are ways to circumvent that, unfortunately, but we have also, I think, MAC address or IP banned that particular
Yes.
person. So we've thankfully, knock on wood, only had 2 attacks, but again, there are ways to circumvent that as well too.
Yeah, so you
Um,
will, by the way, see an account on the grid called Priscilla Kleenex. The reason for that is because when those attacks started, I made one and locked it down so that it it couldn't be used.
Correct.
Uh, it's so that account is okay,
Mhm.
and it means that he or she can't use this grid as a launching pad for other attacks
Right,
against other grids, which is the main thing I was trying to guard against.
right.
But yes, because I also have some kind of tools at my disposal to do things like MAC address bands and or filter by username and things like that. So we've managed, I think, to kind of lock this down pretty quick and control it. There's been 2 cases I'm aware of where something actually happened, and then we handled it pretty quick. But you can definitely help if you follow those guidelines in terms of setting up your region.
And if by some chance you're in a region that is not hypergrid accessible and you see these bouncing orbs or some, strange stuff going on your land, it's not that they've gotten to you um, through some whatever. It's because the objects they've rezzed are physical. In the last time this had or the first time, sorry, they hit one of the regions. I think it was Ellen's, and they rezzed so many of those orbs or whatever physical prims that they bounced all the way across the S to my store, which is close to hypergrid, and I had a couple of hundred on mine. Poor Ellen had like 12,000 on hers. So you know, when they're physical, they will bounce. So if you wind up with something like that, so let's say Ellen, is on holiday and doesn't know that, she's had a griefer. If, Lola sees a bouncing orb on her region and knows she didn't put it there, then chances are somebody's region has gotten that. We don't expect a lot of that. This particular person is well known, well, not well known like that, but across all of the open sim grids. Um, they've all been hit by this person. So we've only been hit twice, thankfully. So, but yeah, it's cumbersome and it's a pain in the patootie. My mom used to call it a pain in the patootie. But we can handle it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good point, Wolf. Very, very important, and that's why I said don't do things like turn off object entry and script entry
right,
because that's necessary for us to do what we do on our grid
right.
and how we have our virtual life. So,
Yep.
all right, last call for questions. Hopefully, my sexy voice didn't distract anybody, and what we just talked about got through. And um, last call for questions for either Callie or myself, and then I will thank you in advance for your attendance and for
Oh,
your interest.
Fancy's got a question.
All right, Fancy has the stage.
I
Hi,
was just
Fancy.
wondering, hi. I was just wondering if we can buy currency, the Skybucks, from the website now, or if we still have to go through you,
It
Mike.
will be, yeah, good question. It'll be a feature on the website when I turn the new site up um, in the next couple of weeks. Right now, you still have to go through me. The way to do that is just put a ticket in, or well, ideally put
Our
a ticket in
our
because it doesn't
preference
go
is a ticket. Yeah.
Oh,
But
okay.
put a ticket in and request what you want, and then I'll put an invoice in. You pay the invoice, and then I'll issue the currency. But yes, um, when the new website is live, you'll be able to directly buy currency from the
Hmm.
website.
Yep.
Great. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think if there's anything. It's exactly like you mentioned, Mike. You go to the store and you go all done. You get home, you put everything away, and you're like, God, dang it, I forgot this. And I'm looking at the agenda that I had put through, and oh, I do have one thing, and this is more of if you can thing. It's not necessarily related to the grid, but it will help. Discord has a feature. They've got a paid-for program called Nitro. And with Nitro, you get, several different things. You can make your name like really fancy and, you get extra emojis and all that kind of stuff. The average person doesn't use Discord like that. So paying for Nitro is generally not something most people will do. And I understand that. But there are some of us that do pay for Nitro and do use it. For example, I'm a Nitro user. And the reason I am is because of the benefits it affords me for this server. One of those things is called server boosting. I've posted about this before, but if you are a Nitro user, you get 2 free server boosts as part of Nitro. And if you boost a server, it gives them better perks. One of those perks, I wasn't real concerned about it until we started the user thing. One of those perks gives you better video sharing, like video frames. Your FPS is better. As a Nitro user, you get that individually. If you boost a server and they get to rank 2, which is 7 boosts, it does it for the whole server. So anybody that does screen share, like during the user groups who's running a class or something like that, will have better video quality for all that are there to see it. So it's just, but if you don't have Nitro, you can pay for a boost on its own, but I don't know the cost. You'd have to actually look. Like if you click on the little gear icon by your user settings on the lower left, when you click on that, in there's a section under billing that says Nitro, and it'll tell you, yeah.
Well, so the key thing that it's very likely that most of the folks that are in the server don't use Discord in a way where
Right,
boosting or having Nitro would make sense. So
right.
we
That's why
totally
we've never
understand.
pushed on it, or I think I've mentioned it in passing once or twice for those that are Nitro, because it makes more sense to get Nitro than it does to pay for a boost, you know, because it's €35 per year, Kai just said. And, Wolf, to your suggestion, I'm leery of that. I don't think it's a bad suggestion at all, but I wonder, given the history with IW, if that might not kind of put a bad taste in people's mind. But I mean, that is an option. It surely is. I mean, but so anyway, it's just a suggestion. It's not even oh, we need this. It's hey, if you guys have it available, if you could give us a boost. We're 3 boosts shy of the level 2 or whatever. We're not going to die if you don't, though. Okay. But if you have it, that would be great. If you don't, no big deal. Just thought I'd mention it. If you have any questions on that, just ask me. You know.
All right. I think we're done.
Yeah, I think that's it.
So we tend to do these about once a month, and somebody said at the very beginning we should have an event afterwards, or they said that we could do an event afterwards. I like that idea a lot.
Hmm.
So maybe about a month from now we'll come back and do another meeting. We'll just do a short grid event afterwards, just to kind of get together to
I'd love to
dance and
have like a
something.
prim charades or something.
Yeah, something. Well, maybe we can. In fact, maybe we can do it in the new user thing and show it off a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, that'd be cool. Oh, if anybody has any building skills and is free to do stuff, that would be great. And also 2 things. If anybody can get in touch for who was it that did prim charades? Was that Ferreter?
Further, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's in OpenSim on one of the grids. If somebody could reach out and
He
kind
was
of
in
see what's up. He wasn't doing so well for a while, but
he was in Kitely at one point.
yeah, I'm not sure. And the other person is Miss Monk. I'd like to get in touch with her, and I've just not been able to catch her in SL, or I'll have to see when she plays at the Piazza. So
Yeah, that's probably the best shot for her.
yeah, if anybody has a relationship with either of those 2, I would not be upset if you reached out to. Yeah, yeah, that's great too. What was it he did? What was the Prim Expressions one? What was that?
It's essentially the charades. Yeah.
Oh, is
You
it?
had to,
Okay.
you had to build something and people could guess.
Oh, okay. Well, that's perfect then. Can somebody reach out to Wolf Hartnell for me, please? We need to get in touch with Wolf.
I think
You know, I think that'd be great. I would love to do some more stuff. I love the GT Club events and I love Fetish Fire. You guys know that those are my jams. I love them. But it'd be nice if we were able to get together and do some other things too. Um, because I do appreciate that people come to those events, but I also understand that it may not be your cup of tea, you know? So I want to make sure we have stuff that you guys, want to log in and do. I would
I
love that. That would be, I love Greedy.
yeah, game night would be cool too. Yeah.
I would
With
love to
standard.
do a Greedy, like, champion, what you call it? Jesus, I can't think of the name.
Yeah, bubble popper.
Um, like a championship, where you have groups that play and then you whittle it down to one group or something, or
Yeah, tournament.
tournament. That's it, a Greedy tournament. I don't know. My brain is fried today. I'd also like to institute something called office hours. I know I know other organizations use that as well, but kind of a time when there's unfiltered access to either Mike or myself or both of us. It would be limited by, numbers, so there'd only be a few people at a time, but once somebody left, another person could come in if they wanted to. But that way you'd get kind of a little bit of one-on-one. So unfiltered. Yeah, just kind of like, not in the confines of a stage or in the confines of a grid meeting, more like a personal meeting. Exactly, Seb. So now, Kai. We'd have to think on that. I think might have to, you know, put Kai in timeout or something. I'm just teasing. I'm teasing. But yeah, so I think these are all really good things. And I really appreciate all of your engagement. But if I am left up here speaking, I will find topics to talk about. So I'm going to mute and say thank you for being here. And we're going to go ahead and stop recording because I think the state of the grid is done. Mike, are we done or no?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Yep. Thank you so much for being here, guys, and thank you for being on the grid. Your presence in our lives and our grid makes us very happy and means more to us than I can articulate. Muting now.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll see everybody in about a month.